All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to the NARPM Radio podcast. And as promised, I have my good buddy, Jason Waggoner here in studio. What do you think of my studio, Wags?
I love it. I love it. I never have more fun than anybody with you, Pete.
And the studio really is just my study where I work at. So Jay, tell us a little bit about tenantreports.com. What do you guys do? And tell us a little bit about that.
Tenantreports.com started in 1992, full service background screening. So that means we go a little bit deeper than just the credit, the criminal, and eviction reports that have become a commodity.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about, because application, background screening, however you want to call it, it's always a big challenge for property managers. You've been doing this a long time before tenantreports.com. You were doing this for another firm. You been in this you personally have been in this business for how many years now?
About 14 years.
About 14 years. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're going about doing the background / credit screening?
The biggest mistake, and you would think at this point in time it wouldn't be that big of a factor, but are landlords or property managers getting emotionally involved with that applicant's story and making a bad decision. I see that across the board. I've taught classes on it, and I still see it. I mean, it's one of the things that if you know me and you call me asking advice on an applicant, you're going to get a real answer. I'm not a yes person. I'm going to look down through there and ask you, why would you give this person a chance with the risk involved? Or sure, if you want to take a chance, have an $8,000 deposit. I don't know what to tell you. But to listen to that story, it's like, just apply. We have, processes to treat everybody the same, but you start making those kind of decisions to where you want to get involved with that applicant's story. It doesn't end well.
So how do we prevent that, right? So one of the things that I was always big on is I'm always worried about fair housing, especially during the application selection, right? Because to me, that's where you can get sued the most or have a claim against you, so to speak. So what are some of the things that companies can do to prevent fair housing claims and to prevent this, like, hey, I've been hearing this story. These guys got a 480 credit score, and I feel like I should take them.
Right. He just went through a divorce. He's trying to help his
You're literally making excuses for him. Right.
You're talking yourself into a bad decision. But the thing about it is whether it's our application or your application, those qualifications should be on the front page. There should be something that tells that person whether or not they would even qualify for your property. They should be able to make that decision for themselves. But also having the policies in-house so that if somebody does file discrimination or a fair housing claim or something of that nature, you've got something to show them, look, everybody's treated the same. Here's what our qualifications are. And, we've done it. There's no wrongdoing here.
So making sure you have good qualifications and then having a policy and a process that you follow over and over.
That's in every business, not just property management. We've all taught those classes that's important.
So so let's talk a little bit about qualifications. What are some of the things that, well, for one, can I have different qualifications for different properties?
I would. So if you have HUD properties, it's going to be a different set of qualifications than a gated community. And
got it. Okay.
So when somebody calls me, that's the first thing I ask them, what type of properties are you leasing? If there is if it's a $3,100 a month home
versus a $800 a month home, there might be some different qualifications.
Please do your client a favor and protect that home, not making willy-nilly decisions.
So a good rule of thumb then would have, like, maybe you have certain set of qualifications for maybe A and B homes and another set for C and D homes.
Right. And you might even have a different application fee. So for a lower income property application, you might charge $30. For a higher one, you might charge $75 because that's your first line of defense in qualifying them. No matter where they fall in the program, they got to have some skin in the game.
So and then you said qualifications should be on your application. They should also be in your listing, right?
Also be on your website.
And on your website. Okay. So they need to be everywhere. Yeah. Right. So now people know. And then if you are using a firm to answer the phone calls, they need to know what your qualifications are per property or anything like that. Okay. So what goes into qualifications?
A lot of people start with the credit score, but the thing about it is, you've got your credit, your criminal, your eviction searches. Are you running a state search or a national search? You'd be surprised how many people are running state searches and don't even know it. And then of course your prior verification. So some people do it, some people don't. But with the current landlord,
right? So like if I'm a applicant or a potential applicant and I see the qualifications. So like, for example, like what I'm going for here is like what kind of credit score should be in the qualifications for, a high-end property and a low-end property. And then what else should I put in there? Should I put in like how much money you need to cover for that rent? No criminal.
Yeah. So, it's the credit's a whole bear in itself. With credit, a lot of people most things are going to give you a pass-fail recommendation now. It's not an end-all. It's not saying that, our algorithm says this person fails, so they fail. No, you need to take it. If your programs do that, it's just a recommendation. You need to take a look at the full picture. So what the people will do a lot of times is, let's say from, 300 to 515 fail, 515 to 615 conditional, 615 and above pass. That doesn't mean that that's an end all. But the thing about it is just because a person has a bad credit score doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad renter. You need to look down through those trade lines, which a lot of the softwares don't give full trade lines and things like that. So it makes it hard to discern.
When you say the softwares, you mean the like the Appfolios, the Buildiums of the world, where it's built in, but they just give you kind of a pass fail.
Yeah, and there's different levels to that. So you may do the site inspection to where they give you access to full credit reports, and I recommend doing that. If you have the option to do that, you should. Mm-hmm. All they're going to do is come to your home or your office and look at it and say, yes, this is a real person. They're not pulling up to McDonald's Wi-Fi and stealing people's credit report. But the thing about it is you can look down through there. That credit score may be terrible, but it may be because of a bunch of past stuff. So if what you'll see on the right-hand side is current but was 90, or 90 DEL. That means they're 90 days delinquent now. The next one may say current but was 120. That means everything's current now, but at one point it was 120 days late. So if you have a bunch of those on there, but everything's current and as agreed now, and you can tell this person went through a divorce or they lost their job or whatever the case may be. They had a rough 6 months. They had a rough year, but now
they actually paid everything back.
Now
that shows you that they're actually pretty good.
Especially if it says current but was right. Then they went ahead and made good on all those trade lines, but their credit score doesn't necessarily reflect that yet.
And what are some of the things you're looking for? That's a great tip, by the way. I actually didn't know that. But what are some of the other things? Like, what is there, like, if I don't pay the electric bill, but I pay the landlord, right? Like, there's like, those are things you have to look at too, right?
Yeah. I mean, some people don't pay anybody, and some people make sure that even if they're late, they get that stuff caught up. And you can really discern a lot from the credit report. I wish I could go through each one of my clients' applications and say, all right, here, and I do that for the first couple until they get the hang of it. But like, here's what you're looking for in making this decision.
Yeah, I know. When we owned our property management firm, the main thing we looked at was if credit was poor due to like medical bills. We didn't treat that the same as credit was poor due to not paying any bills, right, or not paying the landlord,
or owing a property management
firm. And so if you had bad credit due to that, we'd put you on what we called the risk mitigation program. Yeah. And you can go two ways with the risk mitigation program. You can, as a firm, you can say, well, risk mitigation meaning I'm going to get double deposit, triple deposit, or something like that. What we did instead is we had like different levels. Like, so if the credit score was, I don't remember them, so I'm just going to throw numbers out here. Let's just say 550 to 600, then it was a $750 one-time fee that was given to the management firm. And then if it was a little bit higher, then it was like a $500, and a little bit higher, then it was $250. And if it was a little bit higher, then it was, of course, no mitigation. And then what we did is we backed it up with, because that money went to us, and then we backed it up with if they punched out before the lease amount, before the lease date, the end of the lease date, so 1 year, then we would release the property for free. And so we actually got some numbers on that. And the funny thing was the eviction rate for the risk mitigation was equal to the the eviction for the non-risk mitigation. So there really was an additional risk, even though, you would think there would be, but our numbers proved otherwise.
But in a case where somebody dipped out early or you had to evict, you had funds in there to cover that. It didn't affect your homeowner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it could, right? You put somebody who's bad, who's high risk, and they left, 5 months in, they have the eviction, and we release it for free, but that doesn't mean that the homeowner is happy about it because they didn't get the full lease. But the main point I was trying to make is we were going to have the same type of risk, even if they weren't risk mitigation, based on our numbers.
Right.
And then I had some other people do it a little bit differently, where instead of charging the one-time upfront, they would actually charge them a monthly fee. Because here's the thing, Jay, right? We all know that rents are going up, right? So let's just say your rent is $1,500, or let's call it $2,000. Well, they have $2,000 for the first month, $2,000 for the security deposit, and now you want another $2,000 for double deposit. People just don't have that kind of money. So if you charge them $750, okay, or you charge them $75 a month. And so we had some people doing a monthly risk mitigation fee. And then if they wanted their credit rerun, right, we would do it through our methods. You can't give me Credit Karma. You do it through our methods. And then if they did that, then they would then, and if their credit went up, they would remove them from the.
Gotcha,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. So what are other gotchas that you can think of that people are doing that's kind of, putting the wrong people in play or creating some kind of risk for them?
Yeah, where the risks that I see are, so if you're a property manager and you're doing employment verifications, you've heard of the work number. Everybody's heard of it. And
tell me, what is the work number for?
So many companies don't want to mess with employment verifications. So the work number, and there's 3 or 4 that are getting to be larger now that do this, but it's a third party that has a database that whenever you get hired, your company submits your information to them. So if somebody needs an employment verification, you have to go through them.
Okay.
Well, I think the fee right now is $108. I'd have to look and see exactly what it's at, but it's expensive.
Okay.
And so no one does it. It's one of those things to where, okay, send us your pay stub. So if somebody's trying to get over
right,
on you,
or we do it ourselves, or we're trying to call the company, and I can tell you from past history, that is what takes the longest to get verified. And then what happens is you lose other applicants because you're kind of waiting on this one to go through. And then, or you just say, screw it, we're just going to go ahead. We got the pay stubs. We're just going to go ahead and say that they work there.
Right. And outside of not running a criminal check and renting to a sex offender or a high level drug trafficker or cartel or something like that, the biggest risk is, do they make money? How much money do they make? And can they afford this property?
By the way, the cartel guy probably makes enough money. I'm just saying.
I would say. But what we've seen in those situations are they gut a whole house and then they leave shop and you're sitting there with studs and some grow lights left.
But anyway, so let's talk about that. So let's talk about this work number. So does it cost me $108 every time I have to call?
Every time. It used to be 60 something. It just kept going up over the last 10 years. And so that's the biggest thing. And so one of the reasons that I worked with tenant reports was because they have the only end to that. So it solves a huge pain point, but that's the biggest thing is the employment. So
meaning if I use tenantreports.com, I can get that and I don't have to pay anything extra.
It's included in that package, the what I call the super search, but the property management super search package. And you don't have to pay that. So in the past, what we had to do before we had that was on the report, if you remember, it says unable to verify, company uses work number, this other one,
Right.
And just a huge pain point. And so being able to verify employment is one of the.
And how long, if I call that work number, how long does it take to verify employment? Is it like the same day?
Instantly. So when we call the employer and say, we're trying to do a verification on John Doe, here's the information, they give us their code for the work number. We just plug that in and literally button it up within seconds. So where we used to chase them down for, a day or 2, 3 days to try to get an employer to call us back or this or that, I want to say it's a big number. It's like 60% of verifications for employment can get buttoned up instantly for all the people that feed into that database. So you still have to call the employer, and then from there, somebody has to answer and give you this, we use the work number.
Correct.
And then if you don't have that access,
you're kind of SOL.
Everybody has the access if you want to pay the fee.
To pay the fee.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and if I don't do that, then somebody in theory could give me fake pay stubs, and in theory could say they work somewhere and they really don't. Or could say they make more money than they actually do.
Right.
And then maybe they can't afford the 3X rent or the 2X rent.
Which is something else that we're seeing more of, are pay stubs and identity stuff that, I mean, it's just, these people are getting so good with it. I mean, there's been cases where they had driver's license, social security number, and we're just sitting there like, look, both of you have everything that you would need. There's fraud here going on. We got to move on to the next applicant. Sorry, y'all figure it out. Because if you remember when you had one with Empire happen, that was when, and we tried, it's like, let's catch these guys. And well, we found out that it takes 27 days to even get a detective assigned to that case. And so it's not like you can string an applicant along while the property's sitting vacant. It just doesn't work.
Right.
We tried it 3 times.
Best thing is to cut and run.
Cut ties. There's fraud been detected. And in most cases, you can tell who the real person is. But in a couple of those cases, it was so good that we're like, we don't know which one of you
is real.
Right. So we're going to let y'all deal with that. If you want to file a criminal complaint, then please do that, because that's the only way this is going to get resolved. But we got to move on.
Now, could that be a fair housing case against you, or could that be some kind of case? Or you could back that up saying there's fraud and we're not sure who's
there is fraud. And when it comes down to identity theft, we haven't done anything but take an application from somebody.
Right. Is this something like, again, I know a lot of people use the software, property management softwares have a lot of this stuff built in.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about what are because the positives are it's built in, it's one, somebody enters their information one time, there's no double entry, and I hit a button and it just works. So that's the positives. So what's the negatives of using something that's built in?
All of that. I mean, just the amount of fraud with technology, and it's only going to get worse.
So fraud detection.
Right. Automation, when there's not a human intervention involved, it just leaves room for so much error. I mean, everybody's trying to make things better, but who do you think can skim by those? It's the actual real criminals, the ones that know.
They're the ones that are looking for this type of solution that you offer, right. Like where it's just automated.
Let's say criminal history, for instance. It's the ones that know if they change their date of birth or if they change their name to a different variation, they know that you could very well miss their criminal history. So it's being able to look through the report. So, for instance, like what we do is, and I was doing a demo the other day with walking somebody through their first report, and there were literally like 13 variations of this person's name. So on that one, we lose because we run a criminal report on all 13 of those.
Oh, wow.
Typically, it's going to be 2 or 3, a maiden name, a married name, a nickname. You may have a Robert that goes by Robbie or Bobby or Bob. See how they can get really, depending on what name that person's used or what they used on the application. If their government name on the ID is Sandra and they're putting down Sandy, there could be, there's no criminal history on Sandy Smith.
Right, but there might be on
criminal
Sandra.
history on Sandra Smith. So,
right,
all those factors matter
Which you wouldn't even look at that like that.
An automated program.
Correct. Okay, so those variations there. So. Let's talk a little bit about. Do you know anything about the disparate?
It's needed. Disparate impact.
Disparate impact. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure can. And what's happened there is our country. I mean, it's just facts now that we incarcerate more people than the rest of the world combined. It's very sad, and I don't know the exact number on that, but. It's high on, that's mostly minorities. Most of them are minorities, right. So, and it was, I watched there was a video the other day about this guy, and he was at a gas station, had this crew, and he was asking them all, how much time did you do? And one of them was like, man, I did 17 years. I did 21 years. I did 13 years. And then he was like, and look at them all out here working. They were doing a logistics, transportation type services, and all doing great. But what I took from that was that's something that if you're not a minority, that's something that you haven't dealt with is everybody in your community
being been incarcerated
at some point.
Right.
You think about it from a child. So when they come out, and so what happens is they come out and they apply for a job, and that job runs just a criminal report off the top and just gets out everybody that's had criminal history.
Right.
That's what they're trying to prevent, because this person might have been out of prison 10 years, had no problems, has a great track record, but you wouldn't even get to know them because they had a marijuana charge that most people would have done 6 months of probation, but they got 3 years of prison, of hard time prison.
Wow.
And so.
So basically what that means in our language is you can't just have a blanket statement, no felonies anymore.
Not with criminal history. It's not, and you shouldn't, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because you're going to miss out on a lot of good applicants.
What are some guidelines that you would recommend that I put in my qualifications? Because I can't say no felons, but I don't want somebody who's just out last 30 days either.
Right. It's not guidelines that I recommend. It's guidelines that Fair Housing and EEOC and people like that recommend.
Okay, and what are they?
Not having a blanket policy on criminal history, and they're even sending that over into credit nowadays, to where they're saying, don't have a blanket policy on credit. Take a look at it. Let's see what's going on there.
I mean, that's just I hate the fact that they want us to. Here's the issue that I have with this, right? No blanket policies, but then if you make the wrong decision and then somebody puts a fair housing claim against you, right? Because I don't like a lot of gray area,
right?
Because now all of a sudden I don't know who or who not, right? So I'm a big first come first serve guy, and we could talk about running all the applications at once. Matter of fact, I've done a couple of hot topics on it, and that's my biggest ones. People blast me on that stuff. But with that being said, we're all scared of the government, because once the government gets involved in your business, like it's so time intensive and it costs a lot of flipping money. Right. Meanwhile, the government wants us to make these decisions, but yet then they turn around and, because the government speaks out of both sides of their mouth.
Right.
So is there okay, so I can't say no felons, and I'm okay with that, right? But that doesn't mean I don't have to take drug dealers?
Well, you don't have to take anything. You still get to make that decision, but where they want you to look at that decision is, and there's certain states that have already implemented this, and that means that you're going to offer the property or you're going to offer the job and then run the background check. So the background check is the very last portion of it. So you've given this person an opportunity to go through the application hiring process. We love you.
No, but our process for property managers, we run the credit, criminal, we do everything all at once.
Depending on what state you're in. We do in Texas, yes. But depending on what state some of these other listeners are in, they may have to run that background check very last, after they've offered the property.
Wow.
That way we've offered you the property. We love you. Now everything's contingent upon your criminal history. So, okay, you had a hiccup 8 years ago. I've already know you now. We're gonna go ahead and rent to you, as opposed to just at the beginning of the process saying, oh, you have criminal history. Well, you're out.
Yeah. We used to, I think at Empire, our statement was no felons over the last 5 years or 7 years or something like that. So if you were clean for 5 years, now.
Yeah, and it's the same way with bankruptcy. There's a grace period in there to where a lot of landlords aren't going to rent to anybody that had a bankruptcy within the last 2 years, 5 years, whatever your policy dictates. And that's the reason it's.
But that's something that you should put in your qualifications too, is a bankruptcy clause.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And any of that stuff helps them, And so criminal history, the way I explain it to my clients anyway, is on that front page, just let them know, hey, if you have criminal history, it's a case-by-case basis. Let us know. We're going to run a check. We're going to find out. We want you to apply. If that's the only thing holding you back and you think you might qualify other than that, call us. Let us know. We'll make a case-by-case basis, to where in the past we had to have those blanket policies that said we don't rent to felons, or we don't rent to.
Or we don't do Section 8, right? That's another one that was a blanket statement. Can you still have that blanket statement? I know in Texas you can, but
I mean, it's up to you as a landlord if you want to adopt that program, I believe. I
always tell people, if you don't want to do Section 8, instead of we don't do Section 8, you can say case by case, but let's put it this way. If you're on Section 8, the chances of you having good credit,
right,
or making the amount, making enough salary to cover your 2X or 3X.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen people have great success with Section 8, and then I've seen people that it was really hard on their business. And once they got everything lined out to where they were getting paid correctly, I mean, I cleaned out, during 2009 through 2011, did clean outs for the government, and getting paid from them sometimes can be an uphill
Takes a little while. Yeah. Yeah. I have my opinions on Section 8 that I'll leave for a hot topic one of these days. Yeah, maybe I'll do a hot topic on that next one.
But so back to the topic, disparate impact. It eliminates a lot of that. It's not something that people should worry about. Look at that and structure your business so that you're not discriminating against minorities just because they had they went to prison in their early 20s and they're 35 now. Don't hold that against them. My son's a minority, and I hope these things that come down the pipeline like this will help him as an adult to not have to deal with things like that.
Well, the funny thing is that just stay out of jail. But I guess if you're a minority, you kind of got a target on your back, and
they're picking on people. I mean, you can look at our numbers, and it's absolutely atrocious what we've done in this country with our prison systems, and mainly private prison systems. That's a whole nother topic.
Money makers. Yeah. They need clients. They need clients.
But those for-profit prisons, and they fill them up, that affects our communities.
Sure. All right. So we talked a little bit about where you should put your qualifications. We talked a little bit about disparate impact. We talked a little bit about how to read the credit report. Is there anything else on the credit report that we should look at?
A lot of times that employment can be cross-referenced on the credit report. The Social Security number can be cross-referenced on the credit report. Things like that. When it comes to identity, I know there's a lot of different companies trying to put things together to cure this, but it's you at the property management level when you get these reports back doing your due diligence and all of that. If you care, the property managers that call me and we go through their process, sometimes I'm amazed. I'm like, wow, you are an anomaly. And this is the reason your properties have done so well. Now let's get that eviction rate down to even less than 1%. And right. which I love doing. I love helping property managers take that rate and just plummet it. Because that's the thing about it for the owners, for the business. It's the only way we get paid is if you put people in there that can pay the rent.
That's right. Absolutely. So, okay. So, where do you fall on, I notice your business and you make money when you run apps, but where do you fall on the first come, first serve versus I'm going to run all the apps for a property and then make the best decision that I think would be most beneficial to the owner? Well,
so the big differences there are, okay. So I'm a first come, first serve.
Wow. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. You threw me a 3-2 slider and I was waiting for the fastball.
But yeah, I'm first coming, first qualified, move on. And the thing about it is when people apply, that's your structure either has to be like that. First come, first serve. And I haven't taken these other people's money yet.
Why do you like first come, first serve?
Because it just, if you do it that way and you haven't taken the people behind them their money and you haven't charged them yet, it just keeps the Yelp reviews down. It just keeps everybody in check as far as look.
So what do you say to the people that say, well, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our owners and we want to run all the credit and criminal?
I say, wonderful. If you want to do that, then what's going to happen is what they usually do is set a date. So like a week from now, we're going to cut it off. Anybody can apply from now until then. So then I end up with 20 applications. We run them all and we pick the best one. And nobody gets their money back. So right. that's okay. If you want to do it that way, totally fine. As long as your state and your city right. and everything.
So
but you can't go back and forth.
Okay. So my opinion is that if I do that, right, let's say I had 10 people and I select one, obviously, and 9 other people don't get their money back. And I select the white couple. And there was a Hispanic couple that didn't get it. That qualified, right? But the white couple just had a little bit better credit, made me a little bit more money. Yeah. I feel that they have a potential to put a fair housing claim against you.
And even if you win,
it costs you money.
You still had to deal with it.
So if I just did the first come, first serve and everybody else gets their application back, and I never run the application, right. And they qualify based on our qualifications, because the qualifications to me
right.
is what is how we protect the owner. Right? It's not the top of the best it's if they pass these qualifications, then they're good enough for the property. So why am I looking for another set of qualifications? So that's kind of my defense too.
Most of these credit reports, I mean, TransUnion, Smart Moves, and Experian Connect, there's a couple of them that are still soft hits, but when you use a real company and you're getting access to detailed credit reports, it's going to be a hard hit. And that's not a bad thing. But what it is all those 10 people now have a hard hit on their credit report.
Which drops their credit down a little bit?
A couple of points, especially if they're having to go apply somewhere else and get another hard hit. They may have just gotten a raise, or they're moving, they may be getting a car. It's going to be another hard hit. Mm-hmm. And so all of those factors, but whichever way you're going to do it, put it in your policy. Don't flip-flop. Make sure if you're running all of them, run all of them. If you're doing first come, first serve, do first come, first serve, because you start differentiating from that policy and you can't prove your process. That's where you'll lose a fair housing or a discrimination claim pretty quickly when in the court.
So most property management firms, they might use virtual assistants from VPM Solutions, let's just say, to run the applications or to answer the phone calls. What are some of the things that you recommend that we do as business owners to prepare our team to make sure that they're not saying anything that's inappropriate or anything like that?
That's the proper training. I mean, I'm not turning anybody loose on my team until I've worked with them myself. And there needs to be somebody within your company that if you have virtual assistants that they're working with and shadowing. And the other thing with virtual assistants is making sure that sensitive data isn't leaving our country. You know, they can answer all the phone calls they want. They can process all the things that they want. But now there's processes in place where you can mask socials, mask dates of birth, just to take those precautionary measures before you send something to Mexico or the Philippines or India, you know. And I love virtual assistants. You know, I've been a fan of those. I've had my own, and absolutely amazing. But yeah, just to make sure that they're trained properly. I mean, that's the only answer.
Yeah, a lot of role playing, I would think. And again, if you have policies and you have a solid procedure, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means every time we list a property, these qualifications go up. If we list a C property, these qualifications go up. They go up here, 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 and here. You know, when we answer and they ask about, you know, do you take this? Do you take that? You send them to the website, right? And then, you know, you learn how to answer the top 10 questions, right? And you make sure that you don't say anything that can be used against you in the court of law, evidently, right?
If you have a question, stop, call, and ask before you answer and say something that's going to get us all in trouble.
Yep. And then the other big thing would be look at, if you're using the AppFolios of the world to run your credit criminal, you may want to look into a tenantreports.com type of solution and put some human interaction there. Not your team doing it. You have the tenantreports.com, and in theory, you should be able to charge the application fee enough to cover the cost of the tenantreports.com or the other firms out there.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that comes up a lot. And whether you're, you know, rarely will somebody's cost go up with our program, but if it does, my biggest thing is the application fee being the first line of defense. And so many landlords, property managers are afraid to charge. And we're talking about houses in most cases that I deal with, single family homes. Yep. When I rented an apartment while our house was being built, it cost us $125 each to apply.
Wow.
And $150 admin fee. So we were $300.
That's almost $600.
$450 to apply. Wow. So why are we being so
worried about $35
worried about
or $25
$35 or $50? I mean, your application fee. My best clients charge $75 and up,
especially if you're doing first come first serve. Just kidding. I mean, I'm just going to beat this one to death, right? Because then you're not charging the other people. Because I think one of the big, you know, blockers that applicants have is, I don't want to apply for 4 houses and get charged 4 times.
It hurts bad.
You know, at least with the apartment, you're applying one time, and you know, because they have so many units, right, that you know, you don't have to put in 4 or 5 applications.
Granted, there are people that rent because they rather rent than buy a home. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if somebody's renting, it's because they're in a position they can't afford a down payment on a house. Well, they're having to put deposits down that are just under what a down payment on a house would be. I mean, they're in a bad position anyway. Yeah. So yeah, when you're taking somebody's money 4 different times on a property and they're just trying everything to get approved because they've got kids to put under roof and everything else, it's a very stressful time. So yeah, anything that was always my goal. I'm not into catering, to people that made bad decisions. But in this case, if they're 5 people deep and you're taking their money and just running their application just to get their application fee, and I see this happen.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's added, we know in property management, if you buy an investment property, and people's perception of this is so far off that don't invest. But if you buy an investment property, let's say that property is going to cash flow $275 a month.
So that's a good deal. If
That's
cash
a
flows
good
that
deal.
much, yeah.
But when you can do things like this and up that, $100, $150 each time a vacancy comes,
try to get your money back on the vacancy.
They're trying, and I don't blame them. But it's really hard on these renters out here.
It's not very scrupulous. And the nice thing about the NARPM members, as you hear my dog in the background.
Danger.
This is what happens when the studio is in your house, by the way. And we'll see if the team. We don't have to cut it. I think it's funny.
No, he's all right.
But now I lost my train of thought. But so that's not scrupulous behavior, and most agents won't do that. Your self landlords might do that, and of course, people from if you're NARPM, you have a higher, you actually have a higher standard than even just the regular.
And for the record, I don't have a problem with that. If you do that, do it. Just put it on your application that your applicants know we take all applications and pick the most qualified. Let them know that up front.
Right. All right, Jay, we're gonna hit a commercial break real quick, and then the lightning round. You ready for it?
My favorite.
You ready for the lightning round? All right, we'll be right back after these messages. All right, welcome back, everybody. I think we got the dog wrangled, and there's no more dog barking here. All right, Jay, are you ready for the lightning round?
I hope you're ready. You never know what I might say.
All right. Do you use virtual assistants?
I have. I don't at the moment, but I have, and I will as soon as I can afford it again.
What is one piece of advice you would give someone who's just starting out in the property management business?
Get the right mentor. Go through a couple, meet with a couple, and pick the best one for you. But you know what they say, even Michael Jordan had a coach. Yeah,
that's great advice. And again, if you join NARPM, there's thousands of mentors right there. And the one thing about NARPM is people love to give back. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely not. Never.
All right. I knew I liked you for a reason. What was your first job?
My first job was digging ditches at 12 years old. There was a guy down the street from me that had a dozer and backhoe business, and I walked down there and asked him what I could do, and he said, "I'll put you to work for $2 an hour." And I said, "I'll take it."
I'm glad he owned that business and he wasn't part of the mafia and had you digging ditches.
Yeah,
I would ask for a little bit more money than $2 an hour.
I never asked what was going in though.
What is your ideal vacation?
Tahiti, French Polynesia Islands. I'm going there one of these days.
All right. I thought you were going to tell me it was a monkey farm in Tennessee.
That's second.
An inside joke.
I'm going back there too.
What is something most people don't know about you? God, he's the man. He's like a man of mystery. Just give me one. Don't give me 10.
That I was a signed recording artist back in the from 2012 to 2015.
Nice. Well, what is one success you had in your life?
Being a father. I mean, that's just where I'm at now with my kids, 16 and 13. I feel like they have a good head on their shoulders, and I'm sure we've got some fun years coming, but right now that's been a success in my eyes.
What is one Marvel character you associate with? I got the character for you.
I would say Captain America. I don't know.
Wolverine, man.
Oh, okay.
You're like Wolverine.
I don't really follow that stuff, so I wasn't sure.
All right, should I ask you what Disney character, what Disney princess do you most associate? I'm just kidding.
Dude, I'm Elsa all day.
He knows that one right away. Oh man, you prefer dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dog guy. All right, Jay. If somebody was moved enough to want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you and over there at Tenant Reports? Jason
at tenantreports.com, and that's TENANT reports with an S. So Jason at tenantreports.com.
Awesome. And if you are looking for virtual assistants, because they can help with all aspects of your business. Give us a try at VPM Solutions, or you can reach me at pete@vpmsolutions.com. And if you're looking to join NARPM, if you're listening to this and you're not a NARPM member, why not join? Call the good folks over there at 800-782-3452, or go online, and you can sign up as a member online at NARPM.org.
I will say one more thing. So I have had experience with virtual assistants, and it was very early on when I was getting involved, but you had success with that. And so I came to you, and the virtual assistant that we hired, I trained and is now running the company that I left. So, I mean, the potential there, I'm so proud of him. It's amazing. And,
it really is. They can, virtual assistants can.
But I'm glad you went to that area, because your ability to identify talent is amazing. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. All right, everybody. That's all we got for our show today. Thank you so much. Until next time.